The Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah tells us that there are 4 Rosh Hashanahs, there are 4 times of judgment for different things. And the Mishnah tells us that Rosh Hashanah, the first day of Tishrei, is the day when the entire world, Kol Ba'i Olam, every occupant of the planet is judged. Every human being, 6.5 billion individuals are judged. But the Mishnah is very specific in the way it says they are judged. Rosh Hashanah Kol Ba'i Olam Ovrim Lefanav Kivnei Marom. Every occupant of the planet passes in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as does a sheep to the pasture. And then the Mishnah quotes a pasuk. The Gemara, a few blot later, discusses what the Mishnah means by this expression as sheep, and there are various metaphors that the Gemara says. One explanation is that just like a shepherd will allow his sheep to go out into pasture through a very thin entranceway so that he can count them, so too Hashem makes sure that each individual is judged separately. Rather than judging the 6.5 billion people through one simultaneous judgment, Hashem judges each individual separately, much like the shepherd puts each sheep through a separate sort of corridor to keep them separate, so too Hashem judges each individual separately. And there are various explanations in the Gemara for what exactly the metaphor is, but the point that everyone agrees on is that every individual is judged separately. And the question on this Gemara, I think, is rather obvious, and that is that Hashem is Kol Yachol. We've spent the past 2 Shmuzim dealing with some examples of that and some manifestations of that, but it should be quite clear and obvious to everyone that Hashem can judge the entire planet in one fell swoop. For instance, as an observation, when you're in Shul on Rosh Hashanah and you're davening, I want you to think about the following very interesting concept. Here I am conversing with my Creator. My Creator understands where I'm coming from, knows exactly what matters to me, knows exactly my inner intentions, and hears my words. But there's a fellow standing next to me who also has a background, a history, who's also headed somewhere, who's also making requests which are likely very different than mine. And there's a fellow next to him and a person next to him. And in our shul there may be 400 individuals, but there are many, many shuls, many, many communities, many, many cities throughout the globe simultaneously speaking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And Hashem hears every one of them, understands exactly where they're holding, and reads right through them like a book. Meaning, one of the very basic tenets of our religion is one of the animamims that the Rambam says, animamim b'munushalema sheboris barach shemo yodea kol maaseh b'nei odom. Hashem knows every action of the human race, v'chol machshavosam, and all of their intentions, all of their thoughts. Meaning Hashem knows all. Hashem hears simultaneously each of our tefillahs. Hashem is able to process all of that simultaneously. And therefore the question is, why does Hashem have to judge each individual separately? And why specifically is the Mishnah telling us that each single individual is judged on his own? He's alone in din. Why does Hashem do it? And what is the Mishnah trying to tell us by informing us of that fact? And to answer this question, I'd like to spend a little time on a slightly different topic. And that is an observation as follows. We spend a lot of time trying to grow in Yiras Shamayim. We spend an awful lot of time trying to understand why we're here, what life's about, and where we're headed. However, there's a very basic reality that I think you'll quickly note to be true, and that is very, very few people really fear the Yom Hadin. Very few people fear judgment. Now, listen, we're all intelligent people. We're all rational. We all know that at a certain point, I will leave this earth. I, the one who's speaking to you, I, the occupant of this body, will pass away. The body will be buried, but I will stand in front of Hashem, and every action of my life, every thought, every deed, everything that I was involved in, Hashem will judge me on. So you'd assume that I would have a pachad, a fear that was palpable, a fear that would run right through me, that imas hadin of, oh my goodness, I am going to have to stand in front of Hashem on Yom Hadin. And the reality is that we don't. And the question is, why not? Now, one part of the answer is obvious. And the first part of the answer is the fact that none of us recognize the single obvious fact that we're going to die. As we've explained many times, Chaim says there's a society of people who die. There's a group of people, the older people, Nebuch, the unfortunate people, the sick people. I'm not a member of that society. And that reality is operating in every human being's mind. As much as I may be able to state to you the statistical odds of a person of my age, my health, dying, it's in theory, it's far removed and it's distant. However, a person can work on this, and if a person works on it, they begin understanding it, they begin having it become real, and this reality that I will leave this current existence becomes much more right there in front of them. But even if you do that, I think there are three major obstacles to fearing the din. Three major problems why it is that you and I don't fear judgment when we leave this earth. And the first one I'll explain to you as follows. Most people, when they think about Yom HaDin, think of it in the following understanding. It's kind of like a pass-fail test. There are college courses that you can take, not by grade or point level, but pass-fail. If you pass it, you get credit. If you fail it, you don't. I think in the back of our minds, most people think of the world to come in a pass-fail kind of manner. Meaning like this. We're all a bunch of angels. We're all just there. If you're in, you're in. Oh, you have bigger wings, I have smaller wings, but we're all there together. It's going to be great. I'm okay, you're okay. We're all in this beautiful, wonderful world together, and it's pass-fail. As long as you get in, you're good. Okay, now, if that were true, it would be wonderful, but I don't believe it's accurate at all whatsoever. There are many, many, many places where Chazal tell us over and over that there's a very exact grade that you're given, a very exact position that you share, not just letter grades, but down to the minutia 99.87.32, down to the very, very fine points. And that first mistake that most people make of the pass-fail, I think isn't that hard to overcome. But there's a second mistake that many people make, and that is they think of the world to come as a GPA average. I mean, my grade point average is a cumulation of the various subjects that I took. I got an A in this course, B in this course, C in this course. Overall, what's my grade? My average is 3.5, and with that is where I'll be in the world to come. And that also is a big mistake, because it's not your grade point average that gives you your rating, it's every subject is relevant. And if you'd like a mushal to help explain this, I now, Baruch Hashem, I have teenage daughters, and one of the experiences of being a father of teenage daughters is the fact that you become aware that to girls, their looks are very, very important. Their looks are not just, they couldn't care less about guys, they rate themselves amongst themselves on how pretty. But if you think about it, pretty or beautiful is not based on one criteria. If you ask guys who are in shidduchim, and I think it's a little bit of a mishigas, you could have a very attractive young woman, but if she's overweight, I won't go out with her. Again, I believe it's a rather insane concept, but the point is, many people will look at an attractive woman and say she's overweight, I don't like her. So weight, figure, clearly is a part of it. But let's even say you have a woman who is trim. The skin is a big factor. You could have a very perfect face. All the facial features are perfectly designed, but she has bad skin. Ugly. You could have a woman who's very properly formed with a perfect skin tone, but she has a nose that doesn't fit the face. Ugh! Can't stand it. Ugly. Ugh, I can't even look. If you have the first three in line, but she has buck teeth. Oh my goodness, buck teeth. I can't even look at her. I'm not going on a second date. Why? Because I cannot even look at a person. And when you start realizing that hair, the facial features, height, are many of the different dimensions that go into beauty, what you understand is that beauty is not monolithic. It's not weighed or measured in one single criteria. And so too, who you and I will be for eternity is not measured with a grade point average. It's not just he's a good guy or he's not such a good guy. Exactly who I am exactly which midah I worked on and perfected, exactly which ones I didn't. He's a really big, big Baal Kas. What a temper. Oh, he's a very humble person. I see he really, really developed a sense of nedivas, of generosity. I see his Yiras Shamayim really shown exactly what we made ourselves into, we will be for eternity. And if you'd like a very powerful illustration of what this means, the next time you're at a wedding, I want you to think the following. The band starts to play that introductory music. You realize the chassan and kala are soon to come out, and the fever pitch begins to build and build and build. And finally the band leader takes the mic and goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, introducing for the very first time, Moshe Schwartz." And you walk out. And every single eye in the world focuses on you, because this is your Yom HaMisa. This is the day you left this earth. This is the day that you stand naked, bare, without any physicality, not able to hide behind anything. I show up exactly what I made myself into in front of the whole world, and everyone sees me for exactly what I am. And that is Yom HaDin. That is prior to the din, that is after the din, that is who I am, and that is who I am forever. When you understand that, you understand that it's not about I'm a good guy or a bad guy, I'm okay, I'm in, I'm not in. It's a very exact measure of exactly and precisely who I am. But there's a third mistake many people make when it comes to Yom HaDin, and this is a more egregious one. And that is, many people take the following attitude. Listen, it is true I do things that are improper. I'll admit to you I do things that are wrong. But I do a lot of things that are good. And therefore, on balance, when you take the good and you take the bad, it measures pretty well. The good outweighs the bad, so I'm doing okay. On balance, I'm alright. It says in the Shalom that is a fatal error, because there's no on balance. For the good, you'll be richly, richly rewarded, and for the bad, you'll be very, very seriously punished. Because both are real, both are present, and the good does not wipe away the bad, nor does the bad wipe away the good. Just like if I've ever done a Maisa Tov, if one time someone needed something, and I really, really acted in a totally selfless manner, I went out of my way and really strained myself to do something for another human being, and I expect to be paid back for that. I wouldn't expect Hashem to say, listen, I don't really want to count that one. I expect to be paid back for every good. So too says Mesilas Yesharim, I'm paid back for every bad. Both are weighed, both are measured. And when you understand this, you have a very different understanding of what Yom HaDin is about. Every single act of my life, every single utterance that I spoke, every single thought weighed, measured, and accounted for, and reflects on me for eternity. And with that understanding, you begin to understand that the Yom HaDin is a rather frightening concept. Mesilas Yesharim says that it is roi, it is fit for a person lischari to constantly be filled with fear of it. Not a negative, debilitating fear, but an empowering, invigorating fear, because I can change, I can grow, I can use my time appropriately. And says Mesilas Yesharim, this should be a very powerful, motivating force for a person. However, this Yom HaDin is very, very different than the Yom HaDin that we stand on Rosh Hashanah. You see, the Yom HaDin, when I leave this earth, is very specific, very exact, and it's me. There's no pass or fail. There's no grade point average. Exactly what I did that's good remains with me. Exactly that which I did which isn't good remains with me. And that's me for eternity. But that's the Yom HaDin when I leave this earth. The Yom HaDin on Rosh Hashanah is vastly different. The Yom HaDin on Rosh Hashanah is exactly the way people mistake the Yom HaDin in the world to come. Meaning, it's a very, very different sort of din. You see, before I was created, I was given a very specific life setting. How tall, how much intelligence, what type of temperament, what type of charisma, all of the various skill sets, all of the various talents were laid out for me. No human being that I know woke up one morning and said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I believe you should create me with a 180 IQ. No, make it an 80 IQ. Hashem, I believe you should make me glib and articulate. No, Hashem, give me a stutter. That would be real good for me, to go around the world with. Hashem, give me this talent, to give me that. No one chose who they would be. I was given a very exact stage setting, very specific talents, very specific abilities, and my temperament itself, my inner nature is set to a very large extent. I'm weighed and measured based on what I accomplished with that, how far did I go with that, where did I take that to. The din on Rosh Hashanah is one simple question. And that simple question is, you were created and born to live 120 years. Are you now ra'oi? Are you now fit to continue that existence? Based on what you've done, based on the way you've used your time, based on where you're heading, is that what's appropriate? Is that what's proper? Is that what you should be receiving? And it's not just life, it's all of the various criteria. It means health, it means parnasa, it means every success in every area. The question is, this is what you were predetermined to have. Are you fit for that? Are you ready for that? And more than that, is it good for you? An interesting statistic that I haven't quoted before, and they say that 80% of lottery winners are bankrupt within 5 years. I won big, wow, I won it, let's go. Within 5 years, it's not that they're no longer wealthy, not that they're no longer well-to-do, they're far worse than they were before they won. They're now bankrupt. 80%. Why? Because the vast majority of people cannot handle bracha.